this is Sierra and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another video reading the next chapter in Hermitcraft Retribution, Clockwork Chronicles story, Perspective Impulse. Basically I will be reading at least chapter 22. I don't know if I'll read chapter 23. Depends on how much time we have. And yeah, we've got a few more chapters after this. So yeah. And then we move on to the next story, which I may or may not be working on. If you do like these videos, be sure to subscribe and like the video and all that stuff. You don't have to watch these videos. You can just listen to them. They're like similar to a podcast, but not really a podcast. But, I mean, sure. You can just listen to them while you're doing exercise or doing other stuff. You don't have to do it other ways. But yeah. If you don't mind, just enjoy the show. Just enjoy the story, and I'm fine with that. Even if you're out of order, which can happen. Somebody can just tune in and be like, "Oh, what's this?" Like, "Oh, it's in the chapter." And like, I have a playlist with all the videos in there. So if you do want to watch it all, and yeah, I did put a tab where I have all my Clockwork Chronicles stuff, and all of the playlists are linked together. Whew. It took a while, but I did it. I've mentioned it already, but like I might as well mention it again, because you never know. New people might come along. New people might want to see what I'm doing, and I should probably get going. My intro is getting too long. I apologize. Chapter 22. Don't worry about the battery. It's getting better. I was doing some broadcasting, so you probably know what day it was. Impulse beat Blake to the closed storage room door, finding it locked. He could feel a wave of fear, pain, and dread threatening to crush him. Impulse pulled out his redstone box, snatching a small gadget, unlocking the door, opening it. He shielded his eyes from a bright light in the room, blinking in confusion as he took it in. He could see Eliza lying on her side with a groan, clutching her arm as she winced in pain. Behind her, the window was shattered. Where's Caleb? Caleb. Impulse died as he continued his gaze, seeing someone standing in front of the bright light of the portal. It was Julius, standing tall and defiant, aiming a gas blaster toward Gerald, who had a scar pinned to the wall. Impulse gulped, seeing the man pulling out a shiny, enchanted iron dagger tainted with blood, seeing the blood trickling down his friend's shirt. "Let him go," Julius said defiantly, causing Gerald to freeze in momentary surprise. "Why, Julius!" Gerald smiled, turning to the young man, still holding a scar with one hand, bubbles coming off him. He took a potion of strength. Impulse realized as his eyes widened. Blake pushed the hermit back behind him, protectively, extending his own sword, waiting. "I didn't expect to see you here. I got a distress call, so I thought I'd stop by." Julius raised an eyebrow, his grip on the blaster steady. "But no one can use the portals without his friend's permission." The man grinned in triumph, pointing his dagger nonchalantly at Scar. "Do you think I didn't? For all you know, he's coming this way himself." Julius mused, tilting his head. "I wouldn't cross him if I were you. Doc can be quite formidable." It's like the snowballs of doom all over again. Sorry, Doc. Gerald snorted. "Says the assassin. Or should I say, ex-assassin. Do you really think I wouldn't shoot you?" Julius smirked. "I can't. I don't want to take orders from Mr. A. or Campbell. Much less you, Gerald." "I see." Gerald nodded his head slowly, glancing over to Blake, an Impulse still standing by the door. "Thing is, are you willing to risk hurting this one?" He pulled Scar off the wall, holding him firmly like a human shield. Scar groaned, his eyes closed, face pale. "No, don't!" Eliza cried, her eyes wide, filled with tears. Gerald chuckled, looking over to the girl. "You should understand the meaning behind consequences. We don't just go halfway." He glared at Julius. "Unlike some people." Eliminating him will do you no good, Julius warned, his gray eyes hard. It will make the enemy stronger. That's just his theory. A bogus theory at that, the man cackled. He's right, Impulse said firmly, his heart racing, his eyes not leaving Scar. Would he be able to throw a pearl in time to shove his friend away so Julius could strike? He swallowed, realizing it would just as easily leave himself exposed. After he took a kiss from me, my friend has always been there to help me when I needed it most. You're just making that up, Gerald sneered. How do you think that book exists? The novel about us? About them? Where do you think it came from? Julius warned. What book? Impulse frowned. We have a book at the school, Eliza said gently, based on an interview from Sam and Liam about what's really going on, who Mr. A and RJ are, and what Gerald is capable of, and to show us the pain and suffering of what your kind goes through. That's just propaganda, the man snorted. Is it? Julius raised an eyebrow. School told Stampy to do something, to speak the truth, even if it was risky. He did that by asking his two friends to find someone who was willing to tell them. That's what really happened, Gerald. It's not full of lies. There's more truth in it than anything else I've found. He's done this research. Gerald scowled, tightening his grip on his captive. Bull slipped out a pearl from his pocket, noticing Eliza struggling to get her feet, clutching her left arm in pain. Sorry. It's such a shame, Julius, that you believe in those lies. That cat betrayed his own kind, just like you have with us. The only one I've betrayed is you. Julius warned. I'm standing by my friends and my people to protect them, not hurt them. Gerald scoffed. You'll regret that decision, Julius. Will I? Julius raised an eyebrow, their eyes locked in a stare. Eliza limped forward, picking up her fallen sword, her eyes staring at Gerald. Impulse clutched the pearl in his hand, tapping Blake's shoulder with the other. Blake turned, noticing what the hermit was holding, and he smiled. He took it, sending it flying just as Eliza caught up to the man. Both girl and boy charged at Gerald, who was forced to let go of Scar as the hermit crumpled to the floor. Get off me, Gerald snarled, pushing Eliza away as she fell back with a pained gasp. Blake pressing the man to the wall. Looks like your strength is running on empty now, Blake said with a knowing smile. You're not the only hybrid in this fight. Gerald's eyes gleamed, knocking the boy aside as the Impulse ran forward, falling to his knees next to Scar. No! Blake shouted at his cousin. Julius fired, hitting the man square in the chest. Gerald screamed in pain, slamming his head hard against the wall. His uniform flames. You'll regret that, Gerald groaned, stumbling weakly to his feet, gasping heavily. I'll do it again, Julius warned. A lot of warning. His eyes narrowed. You're not going to hurt any more people. You're done, Gerald. Am I? The man smiled darkly as Blake stood in front of the two hermits. Impulse didn't look up, putting down his medical box as he pulled out a towel and regen, pouring the potion over the clean towel before pressing it on the stab wound. He could feel the man's eyes on him, not wanting to look up, not wanting to see what he was doing, what he was thinking. Even if you kill me, Julius, it will only cause more pain for you and your family. At least what's left of it. Impulse turned, tensed, his eyes finally looking up. What have you done to her? Me? Gerald laughed. I don't know what you're talking about, hermit. All I know is that you and your friend won't be getting out of this alive. Impulse swallowed, hearing Scar groan. He looked down, noticing his friend was looking up at him weakly. Impulse? I'm here, buddy. I got you. Impulse said softly, wiping tears from his friend's face. I'm not going to let him hurt you again. A small smile formed on Scar's face. You're a good friend. You're a great one, Impulse teased, keeping the towel in place, hoping to slow the bleeding enough so he could bandage the wound. Julius's jaw was set, his eyes not leaving the man as he took a step forward. You're outnumbered, man weak, Gerald. You can't stop me, or any of us, from taking you captive again. I'll get out later, Gerald sneered. I know, but I'm not asking for surrender. Julius narrowed his eyes. I'm asking for retribution. He fired. Impulse's eyes widened as Fireball hit Gerald square in the chest again, the man bursting into flames, his screams drowned out by the loud crackle that followed. His body collapsed to the floor, crumbling into ash and dust before their very eyes. Did you just... Impulse stammered in shock. Definitely can't survive that, Julius whispered, blowing away the smoke from the blaster, hefting it over his shoulder. He's gone. For good. Julius? Blake asked cautiously. I don't know why. Whatever. I know he was a broken man, but he wasn't willing to change, Julius replied simply. Even after his near-death experiences, he was full of anger and rage. That's why he went after Scar. I can't let him hurt anyone else. Julius. Scar croaked, hearing his name as he turned his head. Julius's eyes widened as he dropped the blaster, all defiance gone as he ran over to the hermit's other side. How did you... You called me, Julius said firmly. His voice was gentle. I regret what I said to Grian. I know I was right. I couldn't... I knew that as soon as I got the distress signal that it was happening. Tears filled Impulse's eyes as he smiled at the boy across from him. Thank you. Julius hesitated before nodding. Change can only happen if someone chooses to do so. No one's saying you're wrong about what you did, Impulse said softly, meeting the boy's eyes. Gerald deserved it. He's hurt many people. Too many. Just didn't expect it. I guess we should have. And Julius chuckled. I'm a trained assassin. I'll do whatever it takes to complete my mission. Gerald was here to kill him. He looked down at Scar. But? Blake asked, crouching next to his cousin. Julius sighed. As soon as Campbell figures out what happened to Gerald, he'll come for you. But you did it, Eliza frowned, leaning against the wall. He will find a way to blame the hermits, Julius said firmly. His eyes met Impulse's again. Especially you. Impulse nodded, looking down at Scar again. That doesn't surprise me. Julius smiled weakly, but before anyone could say anything, there was a sound of footsteps as pairs of feet came up the stairs. Impulse looked up as someone appeared at the doorway. Grian's eyes grew wide as he saw his friends kneeling beside Scar. What happened? Grian. A lump formed in Impulse's throat as the hermit stumbled closer, seeing the rest of his friends appear near the door. He'll be okay, Blake told the hermit firmly. The bleeding has stopped, and the injury is already starting to close, thanks to Impulse. What about... Fear crossed the hermit's face. Impulse stood, pulling him into a hug. Gerald won't be able to hurt anyone anymore, he whispered into Grian's ear. He's gone. Gone? Grian squeaked, pulling away. Impulse could see the uncertainty from his eyes. For good. Julius made sure of it, Impulse said calmly. Grian nodded, his head slowly, looking over at the boy. Tears slid down his face as he muttered. I felt his pain, his agony. He was scared. He's safe now, Impulse said firmly, putting his hands on his friend's shoulders. He'll be okay. A smile formed on Grian's face as he nodded, looking up at the sound of footsteps as his eyes widened. Eliza, are you hurt? Looks like a bit of healing and bandages can't help, she spurred, determined, before looking over her shoulder. Do you know if Caleb's under Haley's care at the moment? Jem finished for her. He'll be okay. Relief filled the girl's face as she smiled. We did it. We did, Blake agreed, getting to his feet with a smile. And we may have to keep doing it for a while. Eliza giggled. Leaning against the wall, Blake walked over to her, helping her sit. And both smiled at the scene, leaning over to lift Scar into his arms. Grian, can you get the chair for me? I might have to fix it if need be. You got it, Grian grinned, running over to the wheelchair lying beside the door. Impulse followed his friends to the sleepover room, gently putting Scar on the bed before bandaging him with Jem's help. How long do you think it'll take before Campbell realizes he doesn't have his head man anymore? Jem pondered, as they both looked down at the now sleeping hermit. I don't know, but I'm not going to just sit by and let him go. They are friends. Impulse said, You know Julius is right. He'll come for us. Not just to capture us. He won't get away with it. Her green eyes flashed defiantly. Impulse grinned, giving her a nod. No, he won't. Chapter 23. Sorry for the sniffles. I didn't blow my nose before recording. Impulse knelt beside the wheelchair, Redstone box beside him, examining the chair to make sure he hadn't missed anything. After spending the last hour or so fixing it up, repairing the broken pieces like the force field, he was pretty happy with the work he'd done. The wheelchair now looked as good as new, the hermit smiling at his work when he heard the workshop door open. You called for me? Julia's voice asked from the doorway, sounding perplexed. Impulse looked up at the boy, seeing him lean against the doorframe. He'd asked Blake to find his cousin and get him to stop by before he disappeared again. Felt easier to talk to him in person anyway. Come in. Impulse rose to his feet, brushing himself off as he smiled, gesturing to a pair of chairs leaning against the far wall. I think what I have to share might be useful in finding your mother. The boy perked up at that. Walking inside, he purposely took a seat. Impulse sat down beside the boy, unable to stop replaying what Skith had shown him over and over. So, you were able to reach him? He reached out to me, Julius. The hermit chuckled. He must have overheard us. Julius nodded, looking down at his feet. What did he say? Impulse swallowed. His eyes stung with tears as he fought them back. She was the one who warned Skid about Mr. A's aerial search, and he was able to get me and Tango out. She stayed with him until she was able to get in touch with Rouse. When Mr. A came for Skid, she wasn't able to stop it. She tried, though. Julius nodded, his head solemnly. Shouldn't expect anything less from her protector. Impulse smiled softly. The only reason the men got to her was because she was forced to surrender. The men threatened to hurt you, and she didn't comply. What? Julia looked up at the man. His eyes met. She laughs at you, Julius. Dearly misses you. Impulse insisted. Skiz made a promise to her that he'd do whatever it took to get her family back together. Tears slipped down Julius' face as he nodded. That was before you knew it was me, right? That I was the kid you promised to find and return? Yeah, Impulse chuckled. He's determined to keep that promise, even after death. Julia shuddered, shoulders slumped. I'm such a jerk. You don't have to be one anymore, Impulse encouraged. Putting her hand on his shoulder. You saved Scar's life. Your mother would be proud of that. But I killed her friend. I killed Skids. Julia sighed in frustration. I've done many things that but I made a mistake with this. Hurting people doesn't get you anywhere, Impulse replied. It just causes more pain and suffering, I know. Julius chuckled softly, shaking his head. Stanby was right. So maybe we can save your mother, together, Impulse offered. What?
I think I'm going to start buying it at Myers.
Okay.
So I'm going to put all those Amazon things, stop them all. So if you want little treats or whatever else, I can look at Myers or we can go to the pet store. Yeah. But I'm done ordering all that stuff, automatically shipping it because I can't anymore.
Oh, the hay just came in. They've been lacking hay since yesterday. Guinea pigs. We're fine. Alright, let's keep going. What are the coordinates you have? I would assume she'd be close to where Skids was held if she'd been trying to rescue him. Julius' eyes lit up, pulling out a little notebook, opening it, moving his finger over the page before landing it on a set of chords. That would be here, I believe, according to the records I have. Impulse looked over his shoulder and those chords do look familiar. Julius smiled, looking down at the numbers in front of him. So close. We're close. Impulse corrected. We'll find her. But we don't know who controls that base now. Julius frowned with concern. It could be Camp Out or another group. I can't risk putting you in danger to help me find her. Skids would have gone, Impulse said firmly. And I definitely don't want you going alone. We can take some friends with us if need be, too. I want to help you. But you have, Julius pressed. Impulse smiled at the boy, patting him on the shoulder before letting him go. Scar wanted to help you, you know. Help you find your mother and rescue her. Friends don't let each other walk out on their own. We stick together. Julius swallowed. You're calling me a friend? You've earned it, Julius, Impulse said gently. Doesn't matter what you've done in the past anymore. What will you do for your future? Julius smiled at that, getting to his feet. Then I guess we should get going. He hesitated. I still don't like the idea of putting you in harm's way. It's a risk I'm willing to take. Impulse lifted his chin with confidence as he stood. For skiz. For skiz. Julius wiped away tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Impulse. I know. Impulse pulled the boy into a hug. Finally pulled away. We should find Blake and see if one of the kids wants to come along. You want to bring one of them? Julius raised an eyebrow. They're good fighters, and we might need it if we're in a pickle, you know? Impulse mused. They need the experience in rescue anyway. Julius laughed. Always thinking ahead, are you? Impulse nodded, walking over to the door. Now come on, we've got to get your mother out of there. Impulse walked out into the hall, not needing to look back to know Julius was right behind him. The hermit walked ahead, spotting Blake stepping out from one of the other rooms with Luke. The hermit gave his protector a wave as the two of them met. He mentioned his plan to the boys as they nodded, agreeing to help Julius in this task. It was the least he could do after everything the boy had done to help them. Oh. Impulse landed on the ground, hidden behind a bush along with Julius, Blake, and Luke. The four of them crouched down, looking out to a small building a couple of stories high. It looked similar to a small mansion, if it was shrunk a few times. Impulse blinked, seeing a guard pass, holding his breath in anticipation. Looks like Campbell's guys, Blake said with a frown, assessing the area. I don't see any sign of invisibility detectors. But that doesn't mean there isn't any. Impulse nodded. I guess they Campbell implementing those after the amount of times we foiled their plans because they didn't use them. Luke giggled. At least he'd learned his lesson in that case. Still not great for us if we want to get in and out undetected, Blake pointed out. I think we have a clear break for the moment. Should we run for it? Wait. Julius held up a hand, scanning the area, including the building itself. We could be seen by cameras. What are the chances someone's watching? Impulse asked the boy. Julius smirked. Slim. I doubt they expect us to just make a run for it. They'd be more likely to think we'd burrow underground or fly to the roof. Hence the cameras up there. He pointed up at the roof. So, I don't see an issue with running for it in this case. Come on. Luke fidgeted eagerly. Let's go before the guys come back. No one argued. Impulse waiting for Blake to make his move before the four of them ran toward the building, around the side to a smaller, more secluded door. Do you think this place would be more guarded? You'd think this place would be more guarded. It's possible Campbell has some of the men doing missions, Julius noted, his expression wary as he opened the door, glancing inside. All clear. Quietly now. We don't know where the men might be hiding out. Your mother must not be an important prisoner to them if there's such a skeleton crew. Luke muttered, pointedly, slipping behind Impulse. She's not super close to Rose enough for him to care. Julius sighed. Well, sure once is a good thing. It means we have a chance. So, how do these bases work when you guys split after your head man was captured? Blake asked his cousin curiously. How do you know who got what base? Some negotiations may have been involved, Julius said dryly. And maybe some fighting. Luke snickered. What's fighting? Different viewpoints and different ideas don't always complement each other, Julius frowned. Campbell doesn't have as many bases under his control as you might think. I think we've arrived at the cells, Impulse whispered, pointing down the hallway. He peeked down the hall, seeing a guard standing near one of the doors, staring off at the wall, looking forward. He almost looked like he might throw off. This really feels too easy. Let's not jinx it, Luke warned, giving the hermit a wary side glance. He pulled out a pearl from his pocket, holding it firmly. I'll go knock him out so we can search. Be careful, Blake cautioned. Luke rolled his eyes and smirked as he threw the pearl. The boy didn't waste a moment tackling the man. The soldier's head smacked hard against the stone floor as his body went limp. He did not see that coming. Yeah, Impulse said nervously, giving Julius a nod. The boy went down the hall as Luke caught back up to them. The four of them looked into cells, finding most of them empty. I think someone's in here, Luke whispered firmly after 5 minutes of searching. Julius was instantly at the boy's side, unlocking the cell, slipping into the room, leaving the door open. Impulse walked up to the doorway. Mom? Julius' shaky voice asked, falling to his knees next to a figure lying on their side. It was a woman. Her dark blonde hair damp and oily, her face pale. She looked as if she hadn't eaten for days, with her eyes opened. Julius? She croaked, her voice dry as if she'd been screaming for hours, her bruises contrasting her pale skin, with a few burns. Torture. He tortured her. Paul shuddered at the thought as Julius helped her sit up. Tears filled the boy's eyes. They hurt you? I'm glad you're okay. Safe. She lifted his shaky hand, placing it on the boy's cheek. You look so grown up. Dad told me you were gone. That could save you. Julius' bottom lip quivered. I thought you were dead. Oh, Julius. She shook her head, wincing in pain, tears falling down her face. I'm so sorry. Julius helped his mother, to his feet with a grunt. Don't apologize. We'll get you out of here. We're here to rescue you. She nodded, coughing as she leaned against her son. Her eyes lifted as she landed eyes on Blake, who was just behind Impulse. Blake! Blake smiled shyly. Hi, Aunt Clara. You look so much like your mother, she said with a glimmer in her bright blue eyes. Thank you, Blake nodded, putting a hand on Impulse's shoulder. A lot has happened since you disappeared. Clara nodded. Unfortunately, you'll have to tell me everything. Once we get you out of here, Impulse said matter-of-factly, glancing over his shoulder nervously. Before the guards figure out what we're doing. You shouldn't be here. Her eyes met the hermit's, concern on her face. Skids would have wanted to be here. Impulse lifted his chin. I'm doing what I can to make things right. Is he okay? She asked hopefully. Impulse bit his bottom lip, looking down on the floor. He gave his life to protect me. Her eyes widened with horror and sadness. Oh, I'm sorry. He had very nice things to say about you, Impulse. You're a good friend. So is he. Impulse nodded, looking up when he felt Blake squeeze his shoulder. We need to go, Blake warned with a frown. We can talk about this later. Julius gave a quick nod, carefully opening his mother to the door. Clara walked slowly, leaning heavily on her son, with an arm wrapped around his shoulders. Impulse stepped into the hall, glancing over his shoulder warily down the hallway. The only sound he could hear were his friend's soft footsteps and Clara's pained gasps as she walked. Blake's frown hadn't shifted either. The hermit noticed the boy was just as aware as he was of their surroundings. Impulse swallowed, and his unease grew just as he heard a door open, somewhere farther down the hall. Hey, what do you think you're doing? A voice demanded as the hermit tensed. He recognized the voice. He turned to see a couple of men in Campbell's typical uniform stepping out into a hall from what he guessed were barracks. To the hall, he recognized those fury dark eyes, aflame with suspicion before turning into recognition of the man smiled. Well, look what we have here. I'm going to end it on you here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, I'll see you in the next part, whenever that might be. It might be next week. Yeah, just depends on how long these videos are. Yeah, just a couple more chapters. And then the next story.